Today I am here with a very fascinating instrument. Now, if you've been following my channel, you'll know that I do videos on pianos and other keyboard instruments, so you're probably thinking, what is this? It's like a Victrola. It doesn't play anything. But actually, as you can probably see, there is a violin and there's even a piano inside of it. So if I turn the light on here, we can see that indeed there is not only a real violin inside of here, but also a real piano. Now, you cannot actually manually play this instrument. You cannot actually come up to it and play your own song with a keyboard. There is no keyboard in this instrument, but there is a piano, and it's a very interesting piano, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this is called a Violano Virtuoso, and it was made by Mills Novelty Company, who apparently made machines for like casinos and stuff and things like that. And they also made this during the 1920s. And there's actually a very interesting badge in the very back of the instrument here that says Violano Virtuoso, designed by the U.S. government as one of the 8 greatest inventions, designated by the U.S. government as one of the 8 greatest inventions of the decade. Mills Novelty Company, Chicago. There were a lot of amazing music companies from Chicago, a very musical town, I guess, back in the day, and probably still is today. You can see a similar badge there on the little rail that moves the hammers closer to the strings, which does activate during performances. And one thing you're probably noticing about the piano part of it is that the strings are laid out much differently than a normal piano. On a normal piano, we have the bass strings all the way to the left of the piano, and then they sequentially go up in pitch as you move to the right of the instrument. But that's not how this one works. The bass strings are in the middle for some reason, and then they will sequentially get higher on either end of the piano, and I assume that like probably the center string, which might be this one, is probably the lowest pitch, and then it goes like the next highest, the next highest, the next highest, the next highest, and so on back and forth like that. So the highest pitch on the piano is either this string or the one down at the end. I don't know which one it is, but it's a very fascinating way to have a piano work, and I don't know why they decided to use that mechanism instead of a standard piano scale, but they did for some reason, and it seems to work very well. It has a surprisingly good sound. So here you can see the mechanisms for the violin. That must be some sort of a motor that probably drives these 4 linkages that will then turn the little wheels here on the violin. This piece here is very interesting. You'll see what this piece does during a performance, and I'll give you a hint. It wiggles. So these are wheels that then they will lower themselves onto the string and therefore make it vibrate. And it's kind of a bit like how the instrument, the hurdy-gurdy, works, which has a large wheel that then powers wheels. This is, or then runs on strings to make them sound. This is kind of like a smaller, scaled down automatic playing hurdy-gurdy. It's kind of what that is. Then up here, again, sort of similar to a hurdy-gurdy, we have little tangents that are then driven by, I assume, a mechanism inside of this really fancy box here that will then come up and fret the strings to get the different notes. And what's cool is multiple wheels can play on the instrument at once to get lots of different notes at once and sound like multiple violins are playing. It's really fascinating. Now, you're probably wondering, how exactly do you tune this instrument? And you're probably seeing this very strange mechanism over here. And this is actually how the instrument is tuned. Now, when the instrument is on, and there's a special mode you put it in tuning mode, there's these 4 buttons you hit that are labeled G, D, E, and A. And so then when you push them, I'm pushing them now, they don't do anything because it's not in tuning mode, but when you push them, it activates the wheel for that appropriate string. And then you can come over here to this mechanism on the left, which is a series of weights that are filled with BBs or metal bearings, and you can insert more or take them out to increase and decrease the weight, because as you can see, these are actually floating parts here. You can see how they move, and so that is how you increase and decrease the tension on the instrument. Now, once again, I'm not sure why they chose this highly specialized method of tuning as opposed to standard violin peg tuners, but maybe this is a much more stable method of tuning. It's very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is very stable. And then there's also a little wheel here that I'm not going to touch, but I'm sure you can turn that to move this weight farther out and closer in on this this thread here, so that then you can increase and decrease the tension of the string simply by moving the weight around. And this one here has a G on it, and I'm sure that the other ones also have the names of the letters on them as well. One of my favorite things about this instrument is, in fact, this really beautiful light here that appears to be original from the time, and it's absolutely beautiful. It really illuminates the inside of the cabinet very well and lets you see exactly what this instrument is doing at all times, and it's just absolutely incredible. So by now you're probably wondering, what does this instrument sound like? How close does it actually sound to a real violinist and a real pianist? So now we're going to fire up this instrument and let you hear it for yourself, and I hope you enjoy. It's a really incredible instrument. That was absolutely amazing. This is such an incredible instrument. I can't believe it. I've never seen anything quite like this before, and it was actually surprisingly beautiful. Even though it's a machine playing a violin, it does a very good job of what an actual violin player can do. And the piano actually had some expression there too, because they could move the soft pedal forward and backwards. You could probably see at some points the hammers would scoot closer to the strings, and therefore it would play quieter. The violin could come out more. It was absolutely amazing. And since there's four different wheels, they can play multiple strings at the same time and really make it sound like there's two violins playing at once, which is something a single violin player cannot do, to the best of my knowledge. It's absolutely incredible. And one of my favorite things that I noticed is, because I was listening to it, I was like, how are they getting the vibrato? And so I'm looking at it, and I realized that this little mechanism down here actually jiggled the strings, and that's why I pointed at it, so I could get a close-up of that. That mechanism there, which I'm not going to touch, because I do not want to break this thing. It's amazing. It jiggled the strings so that then when the little wheel here would come and touch the string would be moving kind of like a violinist's finger would do on the fingerboard, and then it would get a kind of a vibrato sound. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. One thing I just noticed back here on the inside of the instrument is they've went to all kinds of really details. And if you look here at some kind of a support beam, I don't know what this exactly does, but if you look at it, it's made of bird's eye maple. It's a support beam that I assume holds the pneumatics that activates the piano. And it's just some kind of it's not really a decorative piece, but they made it decorative. They made it out of bird's eye maple, which is today it's a very rare wood that is not used at all. Now, another thing that's really cool is this big badge up here. I don't know exactly what it's for, but if I come in here, oh, these are patents. These are patents for all the different companies, and there's a whole bunch of U.S. patents, French patents, Great British patents, German patents, Canadian patents, and then also patents in Australia, Belgium, Spain, and Switzerland. So that is absolutely fascinating. And as you can see, the dates on there are from like 1913, 1915, 1926. So that can kind of give you a rough date of this piano. Some of the patent dates here are from 1926. Those seem to be the latest ones. So this instrument was made probably sometime after 1926, certainly in the 1920s. And it's an absolutely beautiful instrument. So this here is the bottom half of the instrument, and this is where some of the internal mechanisms are. As you saw, there's many mechanisms up top as well, but this is where a lot of the mechanisms down at the bottom go as well. And as you can see, there's the roll that actually plays the instruments. There's a big notice on the bottom there, on a fancy piece of wood, no less, that says, notice, be sure to put the paper back of contact roller. I'm not sure what that exactly means. Be sure to put the paper back of contact. I don't exactly know what that means, and it almost sounds like there's a typo there, but I can't imagine there would be. So if you guys know exactly what that means, because I don't really know what that means, let me know. There is some kind of an adjustment here. It looks like speed adjustment. There's a little knob here that says normal, fast, and slow. So if you wanted to actually change the speed of the roller, you can do that as well with that adjustment. And then there's some papers in here as well that might be like little catalogs for the instrument. 2805, a red label roll of violin solos. That's the actual music that plays. That's what that's talking about. That is what that roll plays. And then there's also a little dealio over here. This is Violano Virtuoso. It basically says the same thing as that badge on the inside of the instrument. Designated by the U.S. government as one of the 8 greatest inventions of the decade. Gold medal at Panama Pacific Exposition. Gold medal at San Diego Exposition. Manufactured by Mills Novelty Company, Chicago, USA. Nothing on the back. It seems to be a very old piece of paper, probably from about this time period. Very, very cool. Here's more mechanisms, more gears that drive the paper roll, and down here is a motor that actually drives solenoids which control all of the different mechanisms. This does not use bellows like some pump organ or a some types of player pianos use, that is a motor that actually drives electronic solenoids that then control all of the mechanisms. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting about this instrument is not only can you run it off of the roll like you would have during the 1920s, but the owner of this instrument has actually installed a MIDI system so that you can then download MIDI songs onto a computer and play them wirelessly to the instrument, which is very, very cool. And it actually doesn't affect the way the rest of the instrument works. I believe you can still use the roll and run it as you would in the 1920s, but you can also play all kinds of cool MIDI songs on it as well, like rock and roll music and country music and stuff. Here's a badge that says stuff. In taking roll off, turn snap switch to rewind. There's a little switch here, I assume that's what they're talking about. When roll is off of lower spool, turn switch to off. So that's how you rewind the roll to remove it and put in a new roll if you want more music. This here looks like it's a start knob. I'm not going to turn it because we have already heard it play. And this is a little controller over here. You can see a tiny green light, and I'll bet that is for the MIDI system that is installed. Now, if you look up here on the corner here, we have a little badge that says you can play 1 to 15 nickels. Place 5 cents in slide and push in. So there's a little slide here that back in the day you would put a nickel into this machine and then push it into the instrument, and then it would take your money and then play music. And so this would probably be installed in perhaps maybe a casino or a hotel or something like that. And it would be a really cool way to have guests enjoy the music and really enjoy their experience at the hotel, casino, whatever it may be. But also, that is how these instruments worked, and so you'd pay a little bit of money and hear a really awesome performance. And that's why these instruments have been called Nickelodeons, because you put a nickel into the machine to get it to play music. Now today, I'm sure that if I put a nickel in there and inserted it, it would play off of the roll, but you can also play music, as I said, through a wireless MIDI system, which I think is a really cool idea. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video on this very unique instrument. It's not, well, it is a piano. I can't play the piano myself, but it is a piano, but there's also a violin. It's just an incredible instrument that I've never seen the likes of before. I've heard of instruments like this that will play violins and other things like that, but I've never seen one in person, and it's absolutely amazing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this really interesting instrument, and if you liked it, you might want to go check out my channel. I have videos on traditional pianos like this, but ones that you can actually play yourself. And so I've got videos on that of all kinds of pianos and organs and stuff like that, but I've never done videos on one of these before. But if any of that stuff sounds kind of interesting to you, you might want to check it out. And if you want to subscribe, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. One additional note that I want to make is if you're curious as to where I found this instrument, once again, I will put the information for the store down in the description of the video, so you can come see it, play it for yourself. There's all kinds of amazing things here, like this absolutely crazy thing over here, which is a piano with about 12 total instruments on the inside of the instrument, and it plays itself very much like this does, and it's an absolutely wild thing. So if you want to see that play as well, you can come here and see that. Once again, the store information will be in the description. So I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Goodbye.
You want the Beatles, you got the Beatles. You want Sinatra, we got Sinatra. You know, it plays Beethoven very well. Some songs, you know, do it more justice than others. You know, and my father always he always would tell me, Mike, play the hillbilly music, because the country music on this is really fun with the, you know, with the fiddle. You know, so he enjoyed that. I like Charmaine. We tap Charmaine, we hit add, and then I hit play, and it will fire up the machine.